Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us for today's second of three webinars. We have the middle child webinar. Um, I'm just joking, but we have a very awesome guest. One of the few that we invited back from last year, due to the exceptional response and feedback that we received from our guests, and that is John Leary-Joyce. Now, John is the founder and CEO of the Academy of Executive Coaching, and over the past 12 years, John has become widely recognized as a senior transformational coach by combining his substantial career in personal psychology with organizational consulting. He has an MA in executive coaching, is an accredited coach with Apex and AOEC, Academy of Executive Coaching. He's a qualified coach supervisor and the current UK president for the European Mentoring and Coaching Council, and also a frequent conference presenter with appearances on TV and radio. Now, John is joined today by Chris Jackson, who John will give a little brief intro for. But without further ado, I'd like to hand over to my very good friend, John Leary-Joyce.
Thanks very much, Ben. What a great introduction, and it's great to be here with you again this year. It was a fantastic program last year, so delighted to be part of it again this year. As you've said, Ben, my background is primarily executive coaching, but in my role as UK President of the European Mentoring and Coaching Council, I've become more and more interested in the role of mentors and how executive coaching and mentoring can overlap and there create some confusion. So this is the theme for today. Are executive coaches really closet mentors? So I'm going to talk, first of all, you may be familiar with Edward de Bono's 6 thinking hats. Well, I'd like to introduce you to the Leary-Joyce 3 role hats. These are the roles that we can adapt when a client asks us for advice. So we can actually wear the coach hat, which is really what we're here about. It's about helping the client to self-discover, to follow their own advice, to create their own solutions. But we can get involved in the mentor hat. This is the olive wreath that represents, remember Homer's Odyssey? Mentor was tutor to Telemachus, son of the ancient Greek warrior Odysseus. And mentor's role was to provide wise guidance on affairs of the state to Telemachus while his father was away fighting the Trojan Wars. So his name has become synonymous with the wise and experienced counselor. So this is where we get mentor from, and now it's become a key role in the professional development field. And thirdly, I'd like us to look at what we're much more familiar with, which is the advisor role. This is the expert, where you know what's right and wrong. You can make the judgment about what the client should be doing. So this webinar has a very specific focus. We're looking at the link and maybe the confusion between executive coaching, professional mentoring, and when that slips into advising, professional advising. And my proposition is that we really do need to pay attention to these differences and make the most of them for the sake of our clients. Now, I'm going to introduce a controversial and unexplored topic within the executive coaching field, something I'm going to call the advice quotient in coaching. So this is, excuse me, the advice quotient is something I've created, and it's about the amount of advice or guidance a coach will offer within a coaching session before they change into a mentor, or even worse, an advisor. Now, all our competency frameworks within coaching tell us that the definition indicates that coaching is not about giving advice. But we know that sports coaching, one of the roots of personal and business coaching, is very much about providing direction and guidance. And executive coaching has followed suit to a certain degree. So it's tempting to use the magic spell, save them money, save them time, give them all they want to know, because it's so much easier and quicker to dispense advice rather than take the client through their own learning journey of self-discovery. So what I want to do in this webinar is provide evidence for this advice quotient, this AQ proposition that I've created. Look at the dilemma. How do executive coaches utilize their expertise so that they're not reinventing the wheel with their clients? Examine what the competency base of a professional mentor would be, and then give you some information on the 6-level AQ spectrum, from pure coach through mentor to trusted advisor. Then we're coming to the close. We're looking at contracting as a mentor. What are the advantages? And the responsibility of a mentor, the duty of care to the client organization. So what's the evidence for this AQ proposition? The reality is that most executive coaches do not get hired on their coaching capability, but on their professional background, in order to fit with the client's professional position or their track record in coaching someone of this type. So a coach with an engineering background is more likely to be hired by a construction company than one with an IT background. A coach who is being a CEO of a major limited company is more likely to be hired by another CEO who has an organizational psychologist. So let's look at the 6 factors that have been identified by the CIPD, the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development, back in 2007. But I think it's very relevant today. So when we're selecting executive coaches, what are buyers really looking for? Well, first of all, it's coaching experience. We can see that buyers are looking for someone who's been there, done it as a coach. But if we look at number 2 and 3, it's really understanding the context of both leadership and management, but also the track record of the coach in the business or the profession that the client is in. It's only when we get down to 4, 5, and 6 that we're looking at the specialist qualifications, the capability of the coach and how they are able to deliver their job. Excuse me a second. That's better. I seem to have got a frog in my throat, which is looking at CPD, continued professional development, and supervision. And I don't know about you, and I'm sure all of you who are in coaching will have encountered this. On many occasions, I've seen less experienced, less qualified coaches being hired over an experienced one because of their career background. So, why? Well, first of all, coaching is still relatively new. The market is not educated enough in what a competent coach can offer. There's a belief that if the coach has previous experience of a role of a coachee, they will be able to be a more effective coach. And we know this is not really the full truth, but it does have some merits, because if you as the coach are able to challenge more effectively the content of the coachee's proposition, then you're likely to get there quicker and be more effective. Many of the professional bodies, especially EMCC, which I'm a key part of, and ICF, which I'm a great advocate, are working hard to change the perception that it does require you to have expert knowledge of the field in order to be an effective coach. But this is going to take a long time, and we need greater clarity about coaching as a valid profession. The second reason is recognizing the credibility of mentors. Now, mentoring has gone through a bit of a dip but I'm delighted to say it's coming back up again. It was really the poor relation to coaching, as coaching has really taken off in the last 12, 15 years. And really, mentoring has been seen as just giving advice to junior personnel, passing on the knowledge that they've had, really not paying attention to the mentee and where they need to be going individually. Over the years, there's been a huge amount of work that's gone on in education, communities, public service bodies, where there is a lot of provision of faithful and wise advice from people who have been experts and leaders in the field. And of course, in multinational corporations around the world, there have been lots of examples of great mentoring, but it has tended to take second place. And therefore, people are preparing to see themselves as coaches rather than clarifying that they are mentors. Let's look at the third component, which more importantly is the area I want to talk about today, is about this notion of the level of advice, the advice quotient that I'm talking about. Now, for instance, this webinar is 100% AQ. I'm here with my advisor's hat on. I'm giving you information based on my experience. And this webinar is a great medium. I provide the information. You're listening in, taking what you want. I'm being the judge here about the truth of this field, this area. And you, of course, you're free to make up your own mind. But the important thing is we're not in dialogue. I do not know your perspective. I'm not following what you want. So this is obviously not coaching. But what's important is that that's clear. This is the deal. We know what we've signed up for, and we're taking the learning that we've agreed. However, excuse me, when an organizational client hires a coach, they're looking for something different. They're wanting coaching capability, but often they're wanting to utilize the career experience of the coach. Very often, they're wanting to find out, can the coach offer an expert opinion about what the coachee is doing in their business, their sector, their role, whenever necessary. So this, again, it's a secondary expectation that's getting confused in with what coaching is all about. And I've spoken to numerous heads of coaching who are procuring coaching, and they always repeat that they're looking for coaches that are a good fit with the organization. Now, this is really code for someone with previous experience who actually knows the ropes and can add that bit of advice whenever necessary. So, are executives really looking for mentors? You know, are we looking for the qualified, credentialized, supervised coach, or are we looking for someone that actually knows about our organization and can tell us what we should be doing differently? There seems to be also an emerging hybrid, called coach mentors. Now, I don't know whether you've come across this, but I'm seeing this appearing on websites, and it's not clear whether these are mentors with coaching experience, or are they coaches who can also do some mentoring? Again, I'm not so sure this confusion is good for the profession, but I think it's a clearer step where someone is clarifying what they are offering. Another hybrid that's emerging in the market, which is again slightly confusing, is what's called a mentor coach. Now, this is a title being used in a very specific way in place of the title of coach supervisor. And this is about identifying an experienced coach to be a mentor who oversees the practice of another, usually more junior coach. So within the profession itself, at the highest level, and I know ICF use this term mentor coach in this particular way, but it's useful to see what we're doing and how we are potentially creating some of that confusion. But let's look at some of the dilemmas that the executive coach faces. You know, how and when do you utilize your career expertise as a coach? And this is the challenge for most coaches when they've got sector or role experience and expertise, and really how and when to use that knowledge without slipping into being the mentor and advisor. And I know for myself, sometimes I have slipped into this more the mentoring role whenever I feel that the client isn't coming up with enough information. I said, look, you know, I've got a sense that there's more here. Can you tell me more about this area, this domain, this sector, because you're not giving me enough for us to work on. The other reason I've slipped into giving advice is when we've been getting to the end of a session and I've seen that there are a couple of points we really need to kind of address before the end. I'll maybe make a suggestion. I think these are the 3 points we need to be addressing now and the 3 points we need to follow up on next time. Of course, if there's a crisis or an emergency or someone is coming saying, you know, there's a major redundancy plan happening and I haven't a clue how to deal with it and I've got to come back to the boss tomorrow, can you help? Well, of course, then you're wanting, if you have that knowledge, to be able to help out at that particular time, to give them some guidance so that they can actually take a course of action that will help them out. Fourth area where I've found myself wanting to be more directive and moving towards the mentor, even an advisory capacity where I see there has been some sort of ethical issue or I've seen a sort of moral transgression and I've been wanting to say, I'm sorry, you know, that's not on. We cannot continue in that vein if you continue working in that particular way or you manage in that relationship. As both as a coach and as a professional, I would not sanction that behavior. And I think if you look at our code of ethics, you will see that that's almost built in there. But these are the exceptions really within your career as a coach. What we find with in-house coaches who have a lot of company knowledge and of course a certain amount of bias, we find that they struggle. And certainly in my role as a supervisor, I find that in-house coaches often struggle to contain their personal opinion, their view, their perspective of the organizations, of the individuals involved. And I also find that it's especially problematic with trainee coaches who've come from a consultant background and are used to giving advice, and they often feel that they're not adding value if they're not making some contribution towards the solution. And of course, it all becomes compounded whenever the organization is encouraging elements of giving that advice. What's kind of interesting is the sort of quirky repositioning statements that coaches often use when they want to give themselves license to add in their knowledge and their expertise. I had one good colleague and friend who used to say, well, this is tips for gardeners. That, you know, that was his way of introducing the notion. He was going to say something a little bit about his knowledge and expertise. I had one person who used to call it, well, this is the Hitchhiker's Guide now to the galaxy. And that was his tongue-in-cheek way of allowing himself to get in and provide that expertise. And of course, many people talk about, well, this is my consultant's hat on. But I'm curious if you wouldn't mind sending through some of your labels, your titles that you use in order to let yourself off the hook of the non-directive coach and offer some expert opinion. And I thank you very much. You see, a couple coming in here. Somebody says they use "I'm changing gear" to actually take a different perspective, and somebody has said time out. I say, well, I'm taking time out from my coaching role to offer something else. And of course, somebody said they have a mentor role that they can slip into. So thank you for that, and I would appreciate you sending them through, because you know, it's interesting to see how coaches are coping with utilizing their advice. Now, I want to bring us on to the competency base of a professional mentor. So the traditional view of a mentor is that it's just about telling a junior how they should do it the way they did it. It's about just passing on that information, kind of not really that interested in the individual development and how to help them develop their skills and expertise, but really about showing them how they need to do it. But it's interesting that there has been a resurgence in the value of mentoring over coaching, as organizations recognize that they do need that expertise from someone who's been there before and done it. And we're beginning to see the need for professional mentors who have a strong coaching capability to manage some of the complexity of organizational relationships. Now, it's interesting that EMCC, the European Mentoring and Coaching Council, say that the competency base for a professional mentor is the same as a coach. And in my presidency within EMCC, I've been talking to the people that set the standards and the competencies. I mean, been beginning to question that and see, well, is this the case? Is it exactly the same competence? So here on my cartoon, you know, when someone who knows the field is able to help someone else develop and deal with the challenges of their role, they are beginning to add something else. And my proposition here is that a professional mentor is executive coaching plus sector experience. It means that you are actually having to do more, and you've got to actually identify what is that expertise that you have that you can add, and how do you do it? How do you weave this knowledge in with the executive coaching expertise that you've got, and reversing the stigma that that mentoring is about being underskilled in that arena of coaching. So when do you move from coaching to mentoring? Well, what I'd like to do now is introduce you to this 6-level advice quotient spectrum, moving from the pure coach through the mentor to the trusted advisor. And I'm delighted to have with me here Chris Jackson, who's a graduate of one of our programs and who's going to be my client for today. And what I'm going to do is take us through, I'm going to move through the 6 levels. So first of all, I'm going to invite Chris to talk about his situation, and I'm going to make a couple of interventions as a non-directive coach, what we might call pure coaching. I'm going to move to the 2nd level, which again is very much still part of our coaching competency practice, about how we share ourselves as a coach, how we bring ourselves into the coaching relationship. I'm then going to engage with Chris and move more into this mentor coach perspective of being suggesting options. What does that look like if I'm moving into this domain of bringing myself in, but offering more options and possibilities based on my experience and knowledge, and then moving more into the pure mentor position of providing options and directions and guidance based on my experience. Then we'll move into the fifth level, which we're moving really away from the coaching expertise, and we're moving more into understanding the sector knowledge, where we're giving specific guidance based on my experience and knowledge of a similar situation that Chris is in. And finally, of course, giving direct advice, the pure advisor, the trusted advisor that many senior people are looking for today. So thank you very much, Chris, for coming here today with me and being on the webinar. I've invited you because the subject you're going to talk about is one that I have quite a lot of expertise in, which is about you developing yourself and your own practice. Would you like to just introduce yourself, Chris, and tell us a little bit about the topic that we're going to cover today?
Yes, sure. Thanks very much, John. So until very recently, I was a partner in a management consultancy systems integration business, large organization. And one of my roles, almost on the side, I suppose, was the development of an internal coaching service. And as you know, John, AOEC helped to train a clutch of coaches and then helped us to set that, that coaching practice up with great effect, actually, particularly at the director and junior partner level. In fact, it was so good that I found last year 90% of my passion was involved in that delivery of the coaching to colleagues, but only 10% of my effort, because my main focus was, I suppose, in your advisor space.
Yeah.
And for various reasons, earlier on in the year, I decided to, you know, really go for coaching directly myself. And so I'm in the process, as you said earlier, of starting up. And you know, lots of options, lots of things to think about, not quite sure how to do it.
Yeah. So you are coming from the advisor space and moving into the coaching space. So this, in some ways, looking at these 6 levels is also useful for you as a practitioner.
Yes, indeed.
Great, great. Okay, so Chris, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take us through each one of these steps one by one. And first of all, I'm going to share with our audience here some of the interventions that could be possible, and out of that I'll choose 1 or 2, and we'll engage in a short 3 or 4 minute coaching session, and then we'll go on to the second step. So
okay.
let me share with the people here some of the interventions, and Chris, of course, you'll recognize these as a qualified coach. The sort of questions you would, as a coach, ask typically. You know, what other options do you have? Who would you admire? This is in the face of being asked for advice. If you were me, what would I say? You know, so what we're doing with these interventions as a coach is helping the person understand their situation without adding any input ourselves. So if I stick within that space, Chris, could you tell me a little bit more about the dilemma or the issue that you're facing in transitioning through to setting up your own coaching practice?
I think it's on a couple of levels, John. You know, having been an employee and latterly partner in the organisation, and I left until recently. You know, it's a large organisation. It's 120,000 people worldwide. As a partner, you have a massive support network. So suddenly I find myself now as CEO, COO, CFO, marketeer, Maybe I could involve Ben in helping that, but so suddenly I'm on my own. So I think that's one dilemma.
Yes.
And I think the other thing is just how to get my to identify my niche.
Yeah.
I think I know what that is, and then how to articulate that niche and indeed to find some clients.
Yeah. Okay. So if we just take the support network one, so I could invite you now to just think about who are the other people that you currently know within your new chosen profession, coaching. What networks do you have available to you that could act as a support?
So the AOEC is obviously one.
Yep.
And that's really important to me.
Yeah.
And already starting to talk to folk in that in terms of helping me. I've done quite a lot of looking around in LinkedIn, and I've tried to connect with some coaches from all sorts of different backgrounds actually.
Yes.
And so that's really started to be helpful as well.
Yes. Good. And another coaching question around that, is there something that might hold you back from expanding that network of people?
No, I don't think there's anything that would hold me back.
Yep, you've no reservations, that you feel that you're out there and you've got the energy to move forward.
I've definitely got the energy, and I've got the space and actually the resources, I think, to not worry immediately.
Yes.
My pressing need is to get some clients. I think just so I've got some work back at the organisation that I was where I was working, and that is just the coaching there is just so energising that I don't think there's anything problematic with the energy level.
Yes. So your energy's there. You've got the space, the time, and you say you've got the resources. And just to add that second point about your niche. Are you clear where you're going with that?
Yeah, I'm starting to get there. I mean, I think it's it's working. Probably looking at clients in the management consultancy stroke professional services industry, possibly organisations not as large as the one I've worked for.
Yeah.
Because I know how to grow a business in that area. So to your point, I guess earlier about sector experience.
Yes.
I've got a lot of that. So I think there's a niche for me in that. I think there's also a niche at the director and junior partner level. I mean, one of the things we observed was that people would get promoted to partner, and then suddenly their performance would go really downhill.
Yeah.
And so I think I've got something to offer in that. So I'm doing some work around creating the sort of personas of the individuals that I would like to coach.
Yes. Yes. So where are you experiencing the limitation, the difficulty here?
It's just getting the first clutch of clients, really making it, just getting on that sort of pipeline. I think how to develop that pipeline.
Yeah.
How to market myself, I suppose.
Yeah. So developing the pipeline, and it's interesting that in our conversation using a coaching style, we've shifted our objectives slightly from building a support network to getting yourself off the ground as a coach, getting the clutch of clients.
Yeah.
So it may be that if I had rushed into giving advice about support network, we might well have missed that one. Okay, well,
indeed.
So let's move on to the sharing of reactions, the sort of things that I could move on and begin to share still within the coaching arena. These are some of the possibilities that I might bring to bear here. So if I just even take the first one, so my impression is that you have got that expertise, but maybe you're doubting yourself in the ability to create your coaching client network. Would that be so, or is that just my perception?
No, I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
Yeah, and could you tell me a bit more about that? What what that doubt might be?
I think it's probably maybe I feel slightly on my own in it.
Yeah.
Back to the point, that I'm CEO, COO, CFO, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm thinking in terms of marketing, how do I approach? What channels do I use?
Yeah.
Does one use social media? Does one use more direct channels?
Yes.
Does one cold call? So I think I'm not feeling confident in which of those, which is the
Yeah.
best of those to go for.
Yes. 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 So a real feeling that you're a bit isolated and on your
Yeah,
own.
yeah,
Yeah. Yes. And a certain element of not knowing kind of which area to pitch at first.
yeah,
Yeah. And I could imagine it's when you've been involved in an organization, a big organization with a lot of that support. It as you say, CEO, CFO, COO. It's like you're having to do it all, and that's really new territory. So quite daunting, I imagine.
yeah,
Great. Okay. So let's kind of move on here and say, well, if I was moving into the more mentor coach arena, I could be offering some options of my own. I could, sit down and get you to map out and with my knowledge of it. And of course, I can add some of my experience and give you some guidance on that direction, and add another view, another perspective. So if I pick up on some of that, so you've identified a number of things that you need to do. What about you've talked about going back into your organization to
yeah,
generate more leads, and I know from experience that that's generally the best way to get rolling, because they know you and they've got the credibility. Is there something in there that you could do more that would help you get more traction with that area?
yeah. I think, yeah. As you're speaking, actually, I mean, I'm focused in one of the areas, one of the um, business units, I suppose,
Yeah,
and yet, because I was with the organisation 15 odd years, my
yeah,
networking is quite extensive, and maybe I'm just putting myself in too small. Maybe I'm focusing on too small an area within the
yeah,
organisation, actually.
yeah. So what you're saying is you could expand out,
Yeah,
and I know that there are probably lots of possibilities, because you've got a great reputation in your organization. So
yeah.
people know you. So I could see that you could actually leverage that.
Okay.
Yeah. And do you know
Yeah.
how you would do that? What would you have to do to leverage those connections?
I think I'd just make contact with them. Actually, I think even just an email, but
Yes.
probably something slightly warmer than an email.
Yeah. Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and just go for it, basically. Just
Yes.
ask the question.
Yes. I can
Who wants to know?
understand. I can understand that it's it's kind of safer, easier to send an email. But
Yeah,
what would it be like to actually just ring up and say, "What about a cup of coffee? Let's just chew over how it's going and what's happened since I left." What would that be like to pick up the phone rather than send the email?
yeah, that would be fine, actually.
Yeah, you think you could do that? And
Yeah.
in my experience, that generally works
Mm.
more effectively, because you know how many emails we get coming in.
Mm.
So what do do you think that would work? I know that in my experience it does.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think I could do that. I think I
Yes.
should do that.
Aha. And I tend to agree here with my mentor hat on as I move forward and start looking at, here we are. Yes, Chris, actually, getting on the phone is the way to move forward.
Mm.
Because we do know that people get so many emails coming through the door that or through their computer, that they really do not have the time, and it's so easy to dismiss it. But if you get on the phone, it makes all the difference. And I know that just to pick up on this one, I think you would be selling yourself short if you just allowed an email. my experience would suggest that, you know, send an email that gives you the entry, with then say, I'll give you a phone call. Would that sort of combination work for you?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. And I'm just these are just some of the other variations of questions that I would ask, you know, taking on much more of a mentoring role of someone who knows quite a bit about organizations. And of course, what about the other areas that you could utilize? I was thinking, what are the books and seminars that you could attend? Just to let you know, there's a fabulous series of seminars run by WebEx that you could actually listen into. That will give you lots of advice. So have you considered other areas of expertise that you could draw on?
I've done a lot in the last month in particular, actually, attending various things like these webinars, although they're not WebEx, and I've actually found them fairly short on content. Yeah. Probably more about self-promotion rather than you know, helping the profession. So I've been somewhat disappointed, actually.
Yes.
So actually, this is probably the best one recently, John.
Yes. So fantastic, you're right here, and I know there's a fantastic amount of content here that you can draw upon. And what about other colleagues who've been there and done it before? You know, what about a sort of one of the professional organizations, the professional bodies, because there are coaches there who have been at your stage, not only at AOEC, which is a great network, but I was thinking of ICF or AMCC. Are you a member of those?
I am, no, I'm not actually, but what I have done is link in recently with their LinkedIn groups, and I've in the last couple of weeks actually in particular, and found those very helpful already in terms of folk being very generous with their suggestions and time.
Yeah, yes, it's fantastic, and again, one of the strengths of this seminar series is the generosity of people with their information, often keen to help out. Okay, so we've done the mentoring bit. If I kind of can move on to the, if I got a little bit more robust, I would be looking at how do I state what I think should be doing, what the route would be like to gain success, and these are a few other points. So, you know, what are the areas that you've tried before? If we have a look at this one, what have you done already? Well, that's worked and not worked.
In relation to?
In relation to generating your business?
So I have focused at the moment on coaching back in my previous organisation.
As we've
I have not tried any other routes to get clients. What I've been trying to do, I think, is work out which clients and where they're likely to be.
Yeah.
And effectively from that, you know, generate a target list of other companies.
Yeah.
I'm in the process of doing, and then looking for a kind of a warm intro to them rather than just a cold call, if you like.
Yes.
So that's where I'm at the moment, because I don't just want to be coaching back into where my previous organisation.
Absolutely, and what you're doing is great. That's fantastic. So you're getting a list of other organizations, and what I'd recommend is that you find other organizations that have similarities to the sector you're in before. Because then you're trying the link, you're taking your credibility through from one side to the other. And you're utilizing that credibility. And what about, have you got any testimonials or direct referrals from your existing contacts?
Not at the moment, but I've got testimonials. I haven't publicised those, I suppose.
Yeah.
But they are informing, you know, the success stories of those individuals back when I was an employee.
Yes.
Have helped me, if you like, get into the mindset of my clients. And so one of the things I'm just in the process of doing is writing down, for each 2 or 3 client types, what's going on in their head, and therefore how my experience and passion for coaching relates to that in terms of helping them.
Yes. So you are in the process of pulling that knowledge that you have together. And
Yeah.
what are you doing with that? Are you going to publish that in some way or put it on a website?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
I'm kind of caught at the moment between, how much of a web presence do I need to create?
Yes.
E.g. website, etc.,
Yes.
or can I do it, via the old-fashioned one-to-one communication or relationships, I suppose.
Yeah. Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm thinking about that. How important is a web presence, and also particular social media presence, I suppose.
I was going to say that it's how do you get yourself up to speed, because we know nowadays that this is the way that we're connecting. Clearly, you're on LinkedIn, so that's the beginning of that. So exploring what are the other areas that you could develop your skill. Do you know where you would go to skill yourself up in using social media? And because there's also a huge amount you can do to activate your website in order to get a flow of people interested. Do you?
That's probably where I'm most green, actually, in terms of experience.
Yeah.
But I'm, done a lot of reading recently, and bought a couple of books on that. So I think it's just a question of putting those things into practice. I don't think I've got a sort of an action plan for it at the moment. I'm more, I think LinkedIn has done great wonders for me, because suddenly if you Google coaching Chris Jackson being a very common name, suddenly I'm getting up in the listings, which is very interesting. Not quite sure how that's worked exactly, but very gratified by that. And then I think, so LinkedIn seems to be working for me well. It's, what do I do on Facebook, Twitter, my own web presence? I'm not quite sure about that at the moment.
Yes. So it's about, one of the things that I always recommend is that developing your website has 2 functions. One, it's a portal to the world and for them to contact you, but also having to use the writing of the website as a way of refining your approach, your style. And I know, of course, because you've done the AOEC program, you will have created your own coaching model, and you will have a lot of that out. But I find that having to put yourself there, I was going to say on paper, but of course on screen, helps you to really consolidate that learning, and also you get an opportunity for feedback. So this is, if I can feel myself moving into telling you this is what's next,
Yeah, tell me please on this one.
do the website, get it out there. And my experience of this is that the website doesn't necessarily generate the leads, although if you design it and develop it well, it will do. But what it does is it really does help you clarify what your niche is. And we know that unless you've got a niche, that being all things to all people, it really just doesn't work. And do you know what you need to do to refine your niche?
I think so. What I'm doing is I'm creating the client persona. So I've got a picture of each 2 or 3 client types. So, for instance, a partner in a professional services firm.
Very good.
And I've got next to that picture, the sort of things that are going on in their mind, the sort of things that they're thinking about, I suppose.
Yeah, it sounds great. That's creative. You're actually creating something, actually a picture with maybe a bubble or something like that. Yeah. Fantastic. Yes,
So
really,
the sort of
really
questions,
good.
The sort of questions, as I'm just looking at it now as an executive. So there's a picture of the guy there as an executive. You're thinking, how do I take my business to the next level? There are so many yes men in my team. Where can I find a real sounding board? How
fantastic.
do I move up a gear now that I've been promoted? And
Yes.
there's a picture of this guy with his, his hand on his head and
Yeah.
sort of thinking. So that helps me to get into the mind of the guy. And so what can I bring to help him?
Yeah, that's brilliant. And that means your clients can identify with that character, and
So, yeah.
they'll see what you're developing. Have you considered expanding that into say animation?
No.
I could put you in touch with an excellent animator
Okay.
who could bring that alive, and just with some very simple, a bit like my cartoons here, the picture comes alive, especially with a little bit of movement.
Okay.
And they're saying that you get I don't know exactly the figures, but it's like a 70 or 80 or 90% increase in attention through animation. So I'm very happy to put you in touch with animators, and you can see whether that sort of investment would be worth your while in order to attract that attention. And of course, the place for all of that is your website. Are you on your own in that, or are you considering collaborating or pulling something together with other people of a similar edge to yourself?
No, I assumed actually. Interesting questions. Assumed it's if you like, it's Chris Jackson Inc.
Yes, and that's absolutely fine. That's a great route to go down. It's just much tougher because if you've got three people, especially if they're complementary, what you'll find is that there's three of you out there working and putting your stuff out, and so you're already trebling the breadth of your offering.
Yeah.
The downside, of course, is that it dilutes you slightly, but if you've got enough difference between you, then you've got that the multiplicity factor.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Would we be okay to stop there?
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks, John. Thanks for your help.
Thank you very much. Now, just before you go, Chris, thank you very much indeed. That's been fantastic. I was kind of curious what you felt as I moved down from 1 to 6. I could feel a difference in myself as I shifted from coach to advisor.
Yeah.
And I just wondered, the coach part of me could hear my voice getting stronger and your voice getting softer as we moved down. So I was just kind of curious whether you experienced that.
Yeah, I think I did, and I think I was because I've hit a conundrum on a couple of points. I was kind of wanting you to move quickly down, so to tell me what to do. So I was, I would be in listening mode. Therefore, then as you moved more down, towards 5 and 6 position.
So you become a little bit more passive in the process. It was less risky for you.
Yes.
Yeah. So further up the coaching spectrum, interestingly enough, becomes much more of a challenge. Even though my suggestions at the advisor perspective may be difficult ones, you experience the challenge coming from the me questioning you and your motives and your energy.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. And as we move down to the advisor state, did you feel as much responsibility or accountability at the end of the day?
No, actually, I felt sort of almost covered by an older and wiser person, if I can use that.
Yes, thank you very much. Let's just go for wiser, eh?
My pleasure, my pleasure. And that was actually quite comforting.
Yes.
As a feeling.
So it's comforting, but I'm wanting to get to the level of accountability that you felt for.
No. I was kind of I wasn't taking as much responsibility.
Yes. Yeah. I could feel that too. I mean, it's interesting you say like being covered. I could feel myself my voice getting more insistent, and almost like almost treating you a bit like a child. Like, you know, you can't do this, I can. And so I'm going to kind of take you up and point you in the right direction. And it's interesting. I think had we continued, if we come back and meet, I think I would have quite a lot of attachment and responsibility for my suggestions. So I have the sense that I'd be expecting you to deliver on these because I'd said so, and would be disappointed with you if you didn't. Does that kind of connect?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
it does actually.
Yeah, yes. But just one last point to kind of put this in perspective, because I want us to be absolutely clear on this webinar that I'm not saying that coaching is better than advising. I'm just saying there's a different output and there's a different level of energy and responsibility, because I hope that some of my advice has been useful to you.
Yes, it has actually.
Sorry?
It has, yes.
It has, yes,
yeah,
of course.
Very good. So I thank you for that. I wasn't expecting it quite. But you've definitely given me some really two or three good ideas. So
yeah, so you've got some good ideas, yet it hasn't been as challenging, and you haven't got quite the same drive and motivation because they're my ideas, not yours. So we could kind of say if some sort of combination of all of this is probably what I think a lot of executives are looking for, and I'll come back to speaking to you as a former consultant. And what do you reckon? Do you feel that the ability to coach, to mentor, to maybe give advice is really where the whole profession is moving?
I think there's a whole point about empathy, which is important. I mean, my own coaching model is about creating a safe space. It's called Space.
Yeah.
And part of that is empathy and rapport, as you know. And I've had a very interesting client recently back in my previous organisation, and I think just the fact that I understand the organisation, she's gone through a very difficult period, has immediately given me empathy with her and helped me, therefore, to help her.
Yes. So just to clarify, you've got empathy with the context, but I think it would be your skill as a coach that's created the empathy in the relationship.
Yes, but I think I've had a head start, if you like, because of that background.
Yes.
And it also, in this case, it also helps, obviously, that I know a lot of the individuals in the organisation.
Of course. So
I'm coming with content knowledge in a way that, in a pure coaching way, I guess I wouldn't be.
Yes. So there is a real advantage of having that sector knowledge. But it is your coaching. Are you saying that it is your coaching expertise that you feel is really making the difference?
Yes.
And the other is extra.
Yes, I think so. So I'm kind of thinking of the other as a starting, just as a help at the start, actually.
You're gaining entry position.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, and I've talked about this bit of a dilemma, and you're starting out in the coaching profession. Are you experiencing this dilemma, or, about how when you give advice? Is that something you're grappling with?
I think it certainly was as an internal coach, John, because in that scenario I was, a very senior person, and I also, I did coach some more junior people, and I think it was always difficult to stop them thinking of me as the big partner, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I had to very clearly signal, the difference between coaching and mentoring.
Yes. So they were putting you in that role.
A lot of them wanted me to mentor them. How did you get where you got to, etc., etc.
Yes. That's a comforting blanket that you experienced with me. They're looking for some of that safety. Yeah,
yes,
of course. Indeed. Yeah. That's rather nice. That there is some place in that, but it does make it safe rather than challenging.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Yes. And just finally, because I know that we need to move on, and that you need to move on. Is there, do you have some way of doing that switch from coach to mentor? How do you do that? When you were internal, did you just say at the beginning?
Yeah, I signaled it.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, as a management consultant, one is paid to know and paid to tell.
of course.
So I know when I'm moving in that
Ah,
mode.
yes, you can feel yourself shifting into this directive, the pure advisor role.
Yeah, so I'm very familiar with that, and it was the coaching training that, you know, told me about 2 ears and 1 mouth rather than, you know, 10 mouths and no ears.
Very good.
So I think you know, as I've grown in my coaching capability, I've grown to recognise that modus operandi.
Yeah, yes. Great. Well, thank you very much indeed, Chris. I've really appreciated you staying with me and traveling through these 6 levels.
Cool.
It's kind of not been easy to be a little bit jerky in that sense, but I'm delighted you've got something from it
Yes.
as well. So thanks very much. I'll just continue on the webinar.
Thanks then, John. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's have a look at, so what are we saying here at the end of that? Are we encouraging our coaches to come out of the closet? You know, are we saying it's time to be clear about the contract? And like Chris was saying, you know, are we signaling up front what we're doing, how we're functioning with our clients? Because, you know, if you are calling yourself an accredited executive coach through ICF, EMCC, AOEC, then really you need to be sticking to the key competencies, which really just cover the 3 out of the 6 levels that I've been indicating here. And as I've been trying to make clear all along, it doesn't, you know, if you are working as an advisor, as Chris was, that's absolutely fine. What I'm saying is that you need to be signaling that and being clear with your clients, and that might then be a real advantage to them. They may know when you have got certain advice to give, and I think that's where we need to be developing a professional mentoring arm where the mentors have the competence of a coach, but also are able to refine and develop their sector knowledge and know how and when to bring it in. Then there's also an interesting issue about the liability issue for the outcome. One of the things that's, sorry, we're looking at the duty of care to the client, because who is responsible, as you witnessed in the session that we did, as we moved down towards the advisor, Chris had a sense that I was taking charge. I could feel that I was taking charge. I was providing the direction. And therefore, to a large extent, I was taking on responsibility for the output for the client. And I think it's very important that we begin to pay attention to the consequence, and especially our insurance. And this is a very practical issue, because if you are giving advice, as my little outrageous cartoon is saying, if you give advice to an organization or to a senior person based on your experience, and that is turns out to be inaccurate or doesn't work out, who is liable? The beauty of coaching and why our insurance premiums tend to be a heck of a lot lower is that you are not taking responsibility for the outcome. You are helping the director, the decision maker, make their own decisions. You are mobilizing the coachee to find their own their own answers, and being non-directive in the methodology. Whereas if you're moving towards the mentor and then, of course, the advisor role, then you're saying, I have to take some responsibility in that. And so I'm drawing to a close here. What I want to say in conclusion that, as Chris was saying, be clear in your contracting. What are the roles that you're offering? Find yourself the labels and the titles that fit that. Get the prerequisite training to be a qualified coach. And of course, if you want to move into the mentoring role, as I was saying earlier, at the AOEC Academy of Executive Coaching, that's our clear focus. But we're getting more and more people who are coming out of organizations, senior people, who are wanting to take on a more of a mentoring role. And we are now offering that, a training program for mentors that has this coach-mentor aspect. So there are a number of opportunities out there to develop as a mentor. There's lots to develop as a coach. But do start to research into that if you're thinking of moving in that direction. And if you're a coach, be clear what you're experiencing to have, be clear what you are claiming to be experienced in delivering as a mentor. So what are you a mentor of? And what we always say at the AOEC, whatever you do, be sure you're able to describe it so that your client is clear what you're offering and what they are able to do and what they expect. And finally, check your insurance policy. That's me as an advisor coming in here at the last point. Make sure you know what you're offering and that you're covered. So thank you very much indeed. It's been great being with you here today. I'm interested. This is a new arena, a new field, so please email me with your thoughts and ideas on your experiences, the challenges that you face to me, john.learyjoyce@aoec.com. So love to hear, love to continue this dialogue, and I think that's what this webinar that Ben has created is all about, bringing people together. We have a blog. I'd love to hear your opinion. I'll put up some commentary on that to continue this discussion. We'll have an opportunity for questions. Ben's going to feed those through. But and if you're interested in developing yourself as a mentor and you're based within the UK, I'm sorry, this is a UK focused program, then info@aoec.com will get you some information. So Ben, I've come to a close here, and I think you've been collecting the questions as we've gone along. Are you up for us taking another, say, 10 minutes and running through the questions?
That's no problem at all, John. Thank you very much for that fantastic session. Dan, thank you so much as well, Chris, for your input as well. Very brave of you to jump online live. Okay, so John, first question is this. Can you share how you cover mentoring in the actual agreement / contract used with clients?
Yes. Well, the only mentoring I do is a bit like I've done with Chris. So what I do is I first get clear what's the client wanting, what are they needing, and what are they wanting from me. So if they're saying, I want you to just help me clarify my thinking, I'll say, okay, so I'm clearly in a coaching role here, and I will not offer my views and opinions. Is that what you want? And then sometimes they'll come back and they'll say, yeah, well, actually, at some point, could you just tell me what you think? I say, okay, well, I'll signal that. And as somebody else has said, I'll say, okay, I've got my mentor hat on. These are the areas I think it would be worth your while developing. So what I do is I make clear at the beginning and identify what I can offer in those areas. Does that answer it, do you think, Ben?
It certainly does, John. Thank you for that. Okay, so the next question is, what are the implications for practice insurance if mentoring becomes a greater component of coaching?
Well, I think the insurance premium is going to go up. that's what's going to happen, because there's greater risk, no doubt about it. And I think those of you who are working in sectors that have high liability and high risk, I think you really need to consider that, and maybe consider just going for a consultant insurance, and then you're covered. You're covered for coaching and any level of advice that you give. But as mentoring takes off, I think probably I think there's a long way off, but I think that as we get clear what the function and the responsibility of the mentor is, we may find that insurance companies, and they're usually very smart to catch on to a new market, that they'll be able to say, well, a coach, we charge a coach this, a mentor is a premium, and if you're a consultant, that's substantially higher. So it will be an increase in premiums.
Okay, thank you so much for that, John.
That's it.
Okay, so the next question is this. What are the common approaches and interfaces among coach to mentor, coach to advisor, and mentor to advisor?
Sorry, just send that again now, the beginning of the question.
No problem. What are the common approaches and interfaces among coach to mentor, coach to advisor, and coach to advisor?
Okay, come on. The interface is, as I was trying to illustrate with the sort of interventions one would make in the 6 roles, I think the interface is, one of the interfaces is the level of responsibility and accountability for the outcome. So as you move from coach to mentor, you dilute the accountability slightly, and you dilute it even more when you move down to advisor. So one of them is the level of accountability, and you could add the level of responsibility that comes with that. The other interface is the level at which you, as the coach, mentor, advisor, uses your own expertise and knowledge. As we've been saying all along, as the coach, you use that, your knowledge and expert, use that to inform questions that will help the client explore without providing answers. And as a mentor, you're adding a little bit more of yourself in to support that. And of course, an advisor, no hold barred. You just say what you think is the right course of action. So it's the way you use yourself, and the delicate area within all our coaching competencies is the use of self. We often talk within it the use of self. How does the coach express themselves within the coaching relationship? And generally, at that interface of coach and mentor, you're, as I was attempting to do here, I'm talking about my reaction to the coachee in the here and now moment. So I'm not drawing on a wealth of experience before or in the future, but actually responding in the moment. I think I've said there in a sort of a common sense way. What is it that they are saying that brings up an immediate spontaneous response? And of course, when you move at that interface between coach and mentor, then you're moving away from the spontaneous engagement to a more rational advisory capacity. From my background, I can bring this forward for you to develop. And then, of course, that gets even more as you move down towards the advisory role. I think that's answered the question.
Thank you.
I hope so anyway.
No, it certainly did. Thank you for that. Okay, so the next question is this. The ICF model emphasizes the pure coach model for certification. Do you believe that the industry model will be shifting more toward the levels and or combinations?
I think ICF, because they're a coaching organization, will have to stick with their coaching competencies as they are. And I think if we are going to help define the profession more clearly and succinctly, ICF should not move on that. And then we should see either a branch of ICF or International Mentoring Foundation. Maybe there's a sister or brother organization that grows up alongside it. The European Mentoring and Coaching Council has this in its brief already, so it probably has more leeway than ICF to create a second competency framework. But I believe that ICF should not move from where they were, so we get a clearer definition of what coaching is and then what mentoring is, and those labels, those titles then become known worldwide and we know what they mean, and then our clients can buy whatever they like. You want to buy a coach, you want to buy a mentor, you want to buy a hybrid, that's fine, so long as you make it clear and so long as you know what the competency frameworks is you're working to and what your level of accreditation and of course your insurance is covering you for. But I think we will begin to see mentoring coming forward more. I don't think we'll bother with advisory because that's covered within consultancy. This advisory role is really just consultancy, but I think what we're going to see is mentoring taking a greater position in the professional development field. Yes?
Thank you for that, John, once again. Okay, so we're going to probably go for 2 more questions, if that's all right.
Okay, good. That's fine. I'm here.
Okay. I have clients who are unused to coaching, but very comfortable with advising. Have you worked this the other way round? So matching as advisor and moving to coaching?
I think the question is saying, have I done the same sequence moving from advisor up to coaching? Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
It's going from the bottom to the top.
Yes,
yes?
That's correct.
I have been in the counseling. My background donkeys years ago was in psychotherapy, counseling, consulting, and coaching. So I've been much more in the arena of moving from top down rather than bottom up. So Chris would be someone who could answer this. But I could see, if I'm trying to recall any examples, I suppose if I start to think of our students who come to me and say, exactly as I've done with Chris, what do I do to get myself started, would be the closest that I have in that stepping. And I find that if I start off with, well, what I suggest is that you set up a webinar, which is what I said to Chris. Sorry, not a webinar, a website. And then as that is being a goal or an objective, then add the coaching questions, which I was doing a little bit, and I was refraining from adding too many coaching questions because I was wanting to stick to my advisor role. But simply say, so if I was working further with Chris, I'd be saying, okay, so what are the difficulties you have in creating this website? Tell me more about that. What are the resources you've got? So I could quite easily go into a coaching mode around the subject that I thought was the good direction. The other great thing about coaching is that really you don't hit resistance. And I know that's a little bit difficult sometimes especially as a new coach, you often feel you hit resistance. But in actual fact, as coaches, since you are there to support them in their goal, if they come across resistance, that just becomes another fascinating area to explore. Oh, you're stuck. You're resisting the suggestion. Okay, could we explore the resistance? In a way, if you are working from an advisor with coaching skills, which is actually, I think, what great consultants are doing now. I've spent many years working in organizations like PricewaterhouseCoopers and Ernst & Young and Deloitte, providing coaching skills and doing coaching skills for managers, in effect, which is basically what you're talking about. How do you add those skills in to surround the advisory capacity? So in a way, as a manager, what you're saying, this is what needs to be done. Now let's look at how you're going to do it. Let me help you think through the way you could do it, how you access resources, how you find your internal confidence, how you utilize other experiences. You know, you can use coaching skills. So as I talk about it and think of the question from the point of view of being a manager as a coach, we're basically in that same territory. You've got to give advice and guidance, and can you do it using coaching skills? And I think the answer is absolutely yes.
Okay, John, we'll go for one last question.
One last one, fine. They're great questions.
They are very good questions.
Really enjoying them. Yeah.
Also, for those of you that don't have your questions answered, please feel free to jump on the Facebook page, facebook.com/WBECS, where you can answer some further questions. And if John gets some time out of his busy schedule, he may be able to jump over there and answer a few of them.
Great. Or stick them on my blog as well. So, yeah, either. But absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so the next question is this. I believe that you have a psychological background.
Yes, I do, yes.
You do indeed. Do you use your industry knowledge as an advisor? And if so, are there peculiarities to this field which a coach needs to be aware of so that it does not apply to other industries?
Well, that's quite complex. Could you reword
Let me read that one again. Okay, I believe that you're a psychological background.
Yes, I am psychotherapist, Gestalt psychotherapist. Yes.
There you go. Do you use your industry knowledge as an advisor?
Sorry, let's just take a bit at a time so I've understood the question. So in my background, in my early career as a Gestalt psychotherapist, do I use that knowledge in the industry? What do you think, the industry of coaching, do you reckon?
Is an industry knowledge.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I have an industry knowledge about psychotherapy and
psychotherapy. Yes. And
yeah.
If so, are there peculiarities, I got it right the first time, to this field which a coach needs to be aware of that does not apply to other industries?
Well, you know, the interesting thing, that coach training is advisory. In fact, if I've understood the question properly, in some respects, this is what I do. I use my industry knowledge of Gestalt psychotherapy as a particular branch of psychology, and I have discovered and used ways of taking those skills and that expertise and using it in a coaching capacity. So basically, yes, I do teach people how to use that expertise that I have learned, and I've learned a particular way of using it within coaching as opposed to a clinical arena. And yes, in effect, I think what you're saying is, am I an advisor with students? But actually, now I'm thinking about it, I think this is a great question to consider further. As a supervisor, when I am actually with my supervisees, when they come to me for supervision, in a sense, this is where this mentor-coach comes in, or coach-mentor. I have a duty of care as the supervisor to the end client. Interestingly, when I talk about supervision, I make this clear. If there's a problem with the end client, the coach has the right to come back to me as the supervisor who's been overseeing their work. So in a way, I'm acting as a sort of advisor or mentor, and therefore in that capacity, I am bringing my expertise, my psychological expertise, to help someone understand, especially if they're dealing with a particularly difficult personality condition within a client. And I will quite clearly tell a coachee that they need to stop working with, sorry, I'll tell a coach in supervision, a supervisee, I'll tell them to stop working with a particular client that they need to refer them on, because I believe that what they're taking on is A, outside their capability, and B, the coachee is not substantially mentally solid to continue coaching, and they need to go into therapy. So in that capacity, I think the answer to the question is yes. I use it in that way to support my supervisees, the coaches who I take responsibility for within our training program, and all our students, all our coach trainees, we take responsibility for at the end of the day. So we are acting and guiding them and making sure. I think there was one point, if there is a legal or ethical or moral issue, if there's a crisis, that's certainly one time where I and our faculty team would step in and say, we're taking over here, or we need you to take these steps in order to exit from this relationship. I can think of probably 5 examples in 10 years where that's happened. So we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of hours. So a very, very tiny proportion. But I think maybe also the questioner is also asking it. There is a spectrum in that, because I will offer guidance using that psychological perspective. I think I've answered a question anyway.
You have indeed, John.
A question that was asked, but I think it's been.
I'm very happy.
Lovely.
And,
are we done?
We are indeed. And the person who asked the question says, thank you very much, John. So, okay, so what I'd like to do is just, before I call the session to an end, is just to once again ask everybody who has a chance to jump on the Facebook page, facebook.com/WBECS, and please post your comments on there and reviews from today's session. We welcome the feedback as always, and John will take some time to go on there and check out your comments and questions as well. If any of them didn't get answered, there's quite a few that didn't get answered, as we didn't have as much time as we might otherwise have had. But yeah, please jump on there.
Yes, and Ben, I'm sorry, I should have had that Facebook page on here. Do you want to just say it again? Because I should have typed it up, but I'm sorry I didn't.
Yeah, no problem. It's facebook.com/WBECS, which is WB.
Oh,
yes.
Facebook.com/WBECS, so that's easy. Yeah.
All right then, guys. Okay. Well, thank you so much, John. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No pleasure.
To join us again. We'll certainly invite you back again to present again. But I'm going to call this session to an end. And yeah, just one final thank you to John for giving his time, and also for Chris for being a live case study for us today.
Indeed, yes. Thank you, Chris. Okay.
Take
care, guys.
Bye. Bye.